I want to start by saying something that might sound counterintuitive. Silence is not the absence of power. It's the presence of deep, unshakable strength. We live in a world that shouts. Everyone is trying to be heard, seen, understood, and that's human. But somewhere along the way, we've confused noise with value. We've equated speaking up with being strong and staying quiet with being weak. But that's a lie, because there is a kind of silence that isn't about hiding. There was a season in my life where I thought I had to fill every silence. In conversations, in conflict, even in grief, I thought speaking would protect me from discomfort. But the truth is, the most transformative moments of my life began in stillness. Silence gave me room to hear myself, and for the first time, I realized how much wisdom was already inside me. I'd just been drowning it out. Being silent doesn't mean you have nothing to say. It means you are choosing to listen first. And in that space, something shifts. You begin to hear others, not just with your ears, but with your heart. You start noticing the pain behind someone's anger, the fear beneath their criticism, the longing in their silence. And connection, real, vulnerable, soul-level connection, it starts to happen. We often think of silence as something empty, a void, a lack. We associate it with loneliness, discomfort, or even punishment. We say things like the silence was deafening, or awkward silence, as if quiet moments are something to escape from. But here's the truth. We often overlook silence isn't the absence of something. It's the presence of everything we've been too distracted to feel. Silence is the space where we meet ourselves, our truest, most unfiltered selves. It's the sacred pause between thoughts where clarity has room to breathe. It's the deep, steady breath after the storm of overthinking has passed. In silence, we're no longer performing. We're not defending, convincing, proving, or explaining. We're just being. There's a kind of presence that can only exist when we quiet the noise, not just around us, but within us. It's in that stillness that we notice the things we've missed. The tightening in our chest that says we're carrying too much. The ache in our soul that's been begging us to slow down. The whisper of intuition that's been drowned out by everyone else's opinions. In a loud world, silence becomes an act of rebellion, but more than that, it becomes an act of self-respect. We start to realize that we don't need to fill every moment with words, every space with action, or every relationship with explanation. Sometimes the most powerful thing we can offer is our grounded, attentive presence. Not to fix, not to respond, just to witness, just to be. And when we practice being present in silence, we start to carry that presence into everything we do. Our conversations become more intentional. Our decisions come from alignment, not urgency. Our connections grow deeper, not louder. So the next time you find yourself in a moment of silence, don't rush to break it. Lean in, let it hold you. Because in that quiet space, something beautiful is always unfolding, a deeper connection to yourself, a clearer path forward, a presence that can't be shaken. Silence isn't what's missing, it's what's been waiting. The loudest voice isn't always the wisest. We live in a culture that often mistakes volume for value. We're taught that if you want to be respected, you have to speak up. If you want to lead, you have to take control of the room. If you want to be heard, you have to be louder than everyone else. And yes, sometimes courage looks like raising your voice. But let's not forget, real wisdom doesn't need to shout. Wisdom shows up in a grounded presence. It speaks through thoughtful pauses, not constant sound. It listens twice as much as it speaks, not because it's unsure, but because it values understanding over being right. Sometimes the person who's the quietest in the room is the one carrying the most insight, the one who's observing instead of reacting, the one who's letting everyone else speak while they take it all in, not because they're waiting for the right moment to say it. When they do speak, their words land with weight, not because they were loud, but because they were true. And yet, how often do we overlook those voices? How often do we get swept up by charisma, competence, or sheer volume, only to realize later that the loudest person wasn't necessarily the one with the clearest vision? Wisdom doesn't perform. It doesn't demand the spotlight. It doesn't interrupt. Wisdom holds back when others rush in. It chooses discernment over dominance. It knows that timing matters as much as truth. And when we start to honor the quieter voices, both in others and in ourselves, we begin to make space for a deeper kind of knowing. And the kind that isn't reactive, the kind that isn't ego-driven, the kind that comes from reflection, humility, and lived experience. So the next time you find yourself in a room full of noise, don't assume the most persuasive voice is the wisest one. Look for the steady one, the measured one, the one that speaks with care, not just confidence. And when you feel pressured to raise your voice just to be noticed, pause. Ask yourself, is this a moment to be loud or a moment to be clear? Because truth doesn't need to shout. And often the wisest voice is the one that's speaking softly, but with deep conviction. Silence teaches you to listen, and listening transforms relationships. We think we're good listeners, but often what we're really doing is waiting to reply. We're rehearsing our response while the other person is still talking. We're nodding, smiling, making all the right faces while our minds are racing ahead. We hear the words, but we miss the meaning. We catch the facts, but not the feeling. And the deeper truth, most people don't want to be fixed, corrected, or advised. They want to be heard, really heard. And that kind of listening, it begins with silence. Silence is the pause that says, I'm not here to judge you. I'm here to understand you. It's the space we create when we put our ego aside and choose presence over performance. When we stop trying to control the conversation and instead let it breathe, we give others permission to show up as they are. And in that space, unrushed, unfiltered, unedited, something powerful happens. People open up. Defenses drop. Connection begins. Listening, real listening, is a sacred act. It's one of the most generous things we can offer another human being. It tells someone, you matter, you're safe here. I'm not trying to change you, I'm just here with you. Think about the people in your life who make you feel that way. They're not the ones who always have the answers. They're the ones who stay with you in the messy middle. They're the ones who don't fill every silence with solutions, but who sit in the quiet with you and say, I hear you. And when you walk away from those conversations, you feel lighter, not because anything was fixed, but because someone saw you. Now, think about your relationships, your partner, your kids, your friends, your coworkers. How many of those relationships would deepen if you simply chose to listen more and talk less? How much conflict would soften? How much misunderstanding would dissolve if we traded quick responses for quiet understanding? Listening is healing. It builds bridges instead of walls. It turns arguments into conversations. It transforms defensiveness into vulnerability. But it all begins with silence. The kind of silence that isn't about shutting down, but about opening up to someone else's world, their emotions, their experience. So the next time someone comes to you with their truth, their fear, their story, don't rush to respond. Don't fill the space. Just be still, be silent, and listen. Because when we truly listen, we don't just hear people, we hold them. And that can change everything. I want to move on to the next one. Stillness sharpens vision. In the fast pace of life, it's easy to mistake movement for progress. We rush from task to task, conversation to conversation, thinking that staying busy means we're moving forward. But sometimes all that motion is just noise. We're spinning, reacting, surviving, but not really seeing. Stillness is what clears the fog. Think about a muddy pond that's been stirred up. The more we splash around, the cloudier it gets. But when we stop, when we let it rest, the water settles, and what was once murky becomes clear. That's what stillness does to the soul. It doesn't mean doing nothing. It means doing the brave things, slowing down long enough to see clearly. Because when we're constantly in motion, we miss things. We miss the subtle shifts in our bodies telling us we're tired. We miss the quiet ache in our hearts telling us we're off track. We miss the small, beautiful moments that make life worth living. A glance, a laugh, a breeze. But stillness invites us back to presence. It helps us reconnect with what matters most. It whispers, look again, look deeper. In the silence and stillness, we start to see what's truly fueling our decisions. Fear or purpose. Who we're becoming, and if that person aligns with who we want to be. What we've been tolerating that we've outgrown. What we've been chasing that we never actually needed. Stillness sharpens our internal vision. It cuts through the mental clutter. It quiets the competing voices telling us what we should do and helps us hear the one voice that truly matters, our own. It also sharpens our external vision. We become more observant, more attuned to others. We notice body language. We sense unspoken emotions. We catch the details that busyness would have blurred. And suddenly, we're not just reacting to life, we're responding with intention. Stillness isn't always comfortable. It can be confronting. It asks us to sit with ourselves without distraction, to face what we've been avoiding with activity. But inside that discomfort is where our clarity lives. It's where the next right step begins to take shape. It's where we remember who we are when no one's watching. It's where we stop trying to prove ourselves and start listening to what we already know. So the next time you feel overwhelmed, confused, or pulled in every direction, don't try to outrun it. Stop, be still. Because clarity doesn't chase chaos, it waits in the quiet. And when we learn to honor stillness, our vision becomes sharper than ever. Not just with our eyes, but with our heart, our instincts, our truth. Somewhere along the way, we were taught that silence is surrender. That if we don't defend ourselves, we're admitting guilt. That if we don't speak up in every disagreement, we're letting someone else win. That if we walk away quietly, we must not be strong enough to stay. But here's the truth. Silence is not the language of weakness. It's the voice of self-respect. There's a kind of strength that doesn't look like shouting back, clapping back, or proving a point. There's a power that lives in restraint. A quiet dignity that says, I don't need to diminish you to protect me. Because not every opinion needs a rebuttal. Not every insult deserves a reaction. Not every battle is worthy of our energy. When we choose silence, we're not backing down. We're standing firm in who we are. We're saying, I know my worth. And I don't need to convince you. I value peace over ego. I don't owe anyone access to my emotions just because they want to provoke them. That is not weakness. That is wisdom wrapped in grace. Silence in the face of conflict requires enormous self-awareness. It asks, what do I actually gain by engaging in this? Am I responding from a place of fear, or am I protecting my peace? And here's something that often surprises people. Sometimes silence is more honest than speaking. Because while words can be performative, silence is revealing. It shows where our boundaries are. It shows that we've done the work to know what's worth our breath and what simply isn't. In relationships, silence can be a radical act of self-care. It says, I'm not going to keep explaining myself to someone who's committed to misunderstanding me. It says I'm allowed to take space. I'm allowed to pause. I'm allowed to choose peace over pleasing. And in moments of deep hurt or disappointment, silence can be the most loving response, not toward the other person, but toward ourselves. It can be the pause that gives us time to feel, to process, to heal before reacting from pain we haven't yet named. So let's reframe it. Let's stop equating silence with weakness and start recognizing it as emotional maturity, the kind that says, I don't chase closure from people who can't give it. I don't dilute my energy trying to prove my truth. I know when to speak and when to stay grounded in my own presence. Because silence isn't shrinking, it's choosing yourself without needing an audience. It's not passive, it's powerful. It's not fearful, it's freeing. And most of all, it's a profound act of self-respect. Everything you seek already lives within. We spend so much of our lives reaching for validation, reaching for love, for success, for meaning, for certainty. We look outward toward other people, job titles, numbers in a bank account, praise, approval, hoping that something out there will finally make us feel full. But what if the thing we've been searching for isn't out there at all? What if the sense of peace, worthiness, and clarity we've been chasing actually lives inside us, quietly waiting for us to come home?